Hi, welcome back to another pattern tutorial. This one is going back to the basics. In this tutorial, I want to teach you basically how the mechanics of a seamless repeating pattern works, because it is such an essential skill if you want to be able to illustrate or design patterns. So I'm using Procreate here. You can follow along with me you can actually use Canva, you can use Photoshop, you can use Adobe Illustrator, you can use Adobe Fresco, or you can use Procreate to follow along with me. What we're going to do is we're going to start with a new canvas, and we're going to create a new one, and let's make it 3000 pixels by 3000 pixels, and you can do 150 or 300 DPI. I'm going to go with 300. Okay, let's go create. Don't fuss too much about your canvas. As long as it's square, it's good to do this tutorial. Now the brush that I'm going to use is just one of the standard brush. It's in the inking section and it's just the drawing brush. Any brush is fine. It does not have to be perfect. You can do any color you like, but basically what we need is we need a square canvas for this activity. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is teach you how repeating patterns repeat, basically. What we're creating here is called a pattern tile. This is the basis of your repeat, and I will show you using circles and squares how they work. So first of all, we're going to draw a circle just in the middle, okay? All right, so what I've done is I've just drawn a line, I've held my pen down, and it's created an ellipse. But I want it to be a circle, so I'm just going to hold my finger down and it creates a circle. Then let's let go. If you didn't quite get that right, see the menu up here that says circle, click the down arrow, and then we can either go ellipse or circle. Okay, but we've got a circle. Let's fill it in. Click and drag your dot over, and then it fills. Okay, let's pop it in the middle. Let's make sure it's in the middle. So let's go to our move tool and just center it in the position. You can see the gold or the yellow lines in there. That is indicating that we've either got it along the horizontal or we've got it along the vertical. When you see both, it's snapped into the middle. If you're not seeing those, just check that your snapping tool is on, it's activated, and you can tell that because it's blue. Okay, so if it's off, if snapping is off, then you're not going to see those lines at all. So just make sure that snapping is on, and then you can see those lines. Okay, so let's find the middle right there. Okay, now one thing that might not make sense to you now, but I'll try and explain it as best I can. Let's create a new layer and fill it with any color, and then go to that layer, select the N, basically the letter that's behind that's next to the tick, click that, reduce the opacity right down to 0, so it says none. And the reason we're doing that, and I'm just going to move that below my layer, what that is doing is it's completely filling my layer. If I didn't have that, when I go to move my circle, it's just going to move my circle. It's not actually going to move the whole pattern tile, which is important. That's what I need it to do. By creating that invisible layer, and I'm going to group them together. Okay, so I've got my group, which consists of my circle and my invisible layer. That then fills the entire tile so that when I do move it, it's not just moving my circle, it's moving my entire layer. Now you may see some tutorials where they just kind of scribble in the corner. That does exactly the same thing. It's basically just activating the entire tile so that you can continue working. But basically where we are now is we have our layer of our circle and our invisible activated layer. And what I want to do now is show you how the repeat works in a tile. So what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate our group. We want to duplicate it 3 times so that we have 4 layers that are identical. Then we're going to start moving our layers. So what's going to happen is I'm going to break up my circle into quadrants, and then I'm going to move the centers into the corners. So in this part, I'm choosing one of my layers, and I'm going to move the bottom right layer so that it then becomes the center. Okay, so I'm just going to hold and drag. You can see one of my circles is moving. Notice the snapping lines, the gold snapping lines. Okay, we've done one layer. I'm then going to select my other layer. And so I'm going to repeat that process, bring the bottom left into the center. Then I'm going to bring the bottom right into the center, the top right into the center. Now I'm going to bring the top left into the center. Okay, so now what you can see is the circle that was in the middle, I've now split it up into quadrants, and I've turned them into the corners. So with these 4 groups, I'm just going to bring them together into one layer. So with one finger on the bottom layer and one finger on the top layer, we're just going to swipe them together, and it turns it into one layer. Okay, I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to change color, go a blue. And now I'm going to create a square. Now, I have a love-hate relationship with Procreate. I can never, ever do the squares right. But I'm just going to do exactly the same thing. I've created the rough square, and I've held my pen down. And now I'm just going to select square. It doesn't really matter what shape it is. Just trying to illustrate the purpose. So I've got my circles that were in the center. They're now in the corners. I'm just going to fill my square now. So I've got teal circles and a blue square. I want to bring them onto the same layer. So again, I'm just going to squeeze them together so they're on one layer. Let's now duplicate this again. I'm going to repeat this process, and you can do it, you can repeat along with me. Let's duplicate, so we've got 4 identical layers, and let's move them again, because I want to show you how the corners become the center. Because when you line up, say if I was to pick up this tile and put it next to it, it would just, the pattern would just continue on, and that is the foundation of seamless repeats. Okay, so let's then move one corner. We'll bring the circles back into the middle, and you can just see how this plays out. The bottom left becomes the center. The top left becomes the center eventually. And now the top right also becomes the center. Okay, can you see now how we originally had the circle in the middle, then it became the corners, and we had the square in the middle. Now the squares are the corners and the circle's in the middle. That's it. That's your pattern tile. That's how they work. I'm going to squeeze them onto one layer. Now let's put them side by side so that you can see how they start to repeat. So with our layers all together, let's create 4 identical layers by duplicating one layer 3 times. And then instead of moving them, we're going to resize them so that we can fit. So if this is the entire tile, we're going to resize it to fit 4 tiles on one page. Okay, so instead of moving, I'm just going to resize. Okay, select the other layer, resize that. So we're going to split it into quadrants. Can you see that starting to come together now? And you can see, let me just move it over here. You can see how we have our center circle and our square that's split up into quadrants. And you can see how when they are side by side, they just infinitely repeat. So we can repeat that process again. I hope you're having fun playing with this because it's so awesome to see this come together. Let me know in the comments how you're going with that. So let's continually resize them down so that we can start seeing our, seeing our repeats come together. Just gonna have to move that. Okay, there we go. So now we started with 1 pattern tile, and now we have 16 because that was a tile, that was a tile, that was a tile. But when we put them side by side, they can repeat infinitely and they're seamless. Like if we zoom right in, you can't see where we've broken them up. You can't see any of that. And that is seamless repeating pattern tiles. I hope you found this tutorial helpful, and it really just helps you just get like this full grasp on the mechanics of how seamless repeating patterns work. Please let me know in the comments how you found this, and did it click for you, or are you still struggling with the concept, or did you understand and you just wanted to go back to basics and that sort of thing? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to have a chat about it. If you enjoyed this tutorial and you'd like to take it a step further, follow along with my next video and we will start to design some beautiful floral motifs using this very same process. I'll see you there.